My uncle borrowed $50,000 and never paid me back. 10 years later, he knocked on my door asking for a place to stay. When my grandfather died, he left me $50,000 with specific instructions in his will. Use it to start your life right. 6 months later, my uncle Keith called crying about losing his business and needing emergency cash to save it. He said he'd pay me back in a year with interest. He was family. He was my dad's brother. He'd been at every birthday and holiday my entire life, so I wrote him a check for the full amount. The first year, he said business was slow but recovering. The second year, he stopped returning my calls. By year 3, I found out through Facebook that he'd sold the business, bought a boat, and retired early to Florida. He posted photos of himself fishing and golfing while I was working 60-hour weeks, trying to rebuild what I'd lost. I went to a lawyer who said I could sue, but it would cost $15,000 up front with no guarantee of collecting anything even if I won. I couldn't afford another loss, so I just kept working. I picked up freelance projects on weekends and holidays. I drove a car with 200,000 miles that broke down constantly. I lived in a studio apartment with a leaking ceiling and a landlord who wouldn't fix anything. When my best friend got married in California, I couldn't afford the plane ticket. When my mom got sick, I had to borrow money from my sister to help with medical bills because I had nothing saved. Meanwhile, Keith posted photos from cruises and resort vacations and fancy steakhouses. He bought a second property in the Keys. He got remarried to someone 20 years younger and threw a wedding that looked more expensive than my entire year's salary. He never once mentioned the money or asked if I needed help or acknowledged that he'd destroyed my financial stability for a decade. After 6 years, I'd finally saved enough to buy a small house. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom fixer-upper that needed work but was mine. I spent every weekend renovating it myself, learning plumbing and electrical from YouTube because I couldn't afford contractors. 4 more years passed. Last month, I made the final payment on the mortgage and owned my house free and clear. It had taken me a decade to recover from what Keith did, but I'd done it completely on my own. 1 week later, a truck pulled into my driveway. Keith got out looking nothing like his Facebook photos. He'd aged badly, gained weight, and was wearing clothes that had seen better days. He walked up to my porch carrying a duffel bag. "Hey kiddo, long time no see. I'm in a bit of a situation and need to crash with you for a while." I didn't move from the doorway. He tried to look past me into the house. "Come on, don't be weird. I just need a room for a few months until I figure things out. You've got space now that you bought this place." I asked him what happened to his house in Florida and his place in the Keys. His face tightened. "Things got complicated. The market crashed. Ex-wife took everything in the divorce. I've had some bad luck, okay? But we're family. You help family." I told him family pays back $50,000 they borrowed. He waved his hand dismissively. "Jesus, you're still hung up on that? That was a decade ago. I was in a crisis. You need to let it go and move on. Besides, I lost that money in the business anyway, so technically neither of us has it." I told him I had it. I had my house that I paid for with 10 years of working myself to exhaustion because he stole my future. "Stole is a strong word," he said, his voice getting defensive. "I borrowed it with every intention of paying you back. It's not my fault the economy tanked. You can't hold a grudge forever. I'm your uncle. Your dad would want you to help me." I told him my dad would want him to have paid me back like he promised. Keith's face went red. "Fine. You want to be petty? I'll pay you back. Just let me stay here until I get back on my feet and I'll figure out a payment plan." I asked him how he planned to pay me back when he just said he lost everything. He didn't have an answer for that. I pulled out my phone and showed him screenshots I'd saved over the years. Photos of his boat, his vacation homes, his cruise ship balconies, his wedding that cost more than my car. "You didn't lose everything," I said. "You spent everything. On yourself. While I ate ramen and fixed my own car in parking lots and skipped my best friend's wedding because I couldn't afford a plane ticket." He stared at the photos, his face shifting from anger to something that almost looked like shame. "That was before the divorce. She took all that in the settlement." I told him that wasn't my problem. "You're really going to turn away family?" he asked, his voice getting desperate. "I have nowhere else to go. I'm sleeping in my truck. I'm your father's brother. What kind of person turns their back on blood?" I told him the kind of person who learned that blood doesn't mean anything when someone takes $50,000 and disappears for a decade. The kind of person who spent 10 years rebuilding their life alone while he posted vacation photos. The kind of person who knows that family actually means showing up when it matters, not just when you need something. Keith stood there for a long moment. Then he said, "You'll regret this. When you need help someday, don't come crying to me." I told him I'd already spent 10 years not coming to him for anything, and I'd figured it out just fine. He walked back to his truck, threw his duffel bag in the passenger seat, and drove away.